I have to make up for last week's really bad one. Good morning. So Parshat Chukat. This is one of the biggest parshas in the entire canon because this is where Moshe loses the privilege of going into Israel. And I want to give something that I read this last night, which is great. So if we think about the Ten Commandments and the splitting in 5 and 5, if you run down the first side, it starts with God. And it moves down in terms of creation, this kind of respect for your creator, and it ends with Kibud Av, which is, again, for the children to respect their creator. And then if you do that, it leads to the other 5, which is how you treat the people around you. But it starts at the beginning with this respect. But you have to take Kibud Av and you have to turn it around. It means that if you have to respect your parents, it's not something that is naturally easy to do, which means the parents have to know that it's not easy for the kids to respect them. And that's what this parsha is about in terms of looking at Moshe and Bnei Israel in terms of him being like a father and them being his children. What happens? Miriam dies, they run out of water, and there's an ascension of complaining. The nation gathers and it switches between singular and plural. Vayirav ha'am, the people quarreled with Moshe. If we only had died in the desert, but we only had died because it's now 39 years into the story of the desert, and so the first generation has already died out. It's a new generation, and this is where the whole crux is. What is the biggest sentence here? It says, "Why did you bring us up from Egypt to bring us to this evil place? There's not a seed, a fig, a grape, or a pomegranate, and then there's no water to drink." Now, on its face, it looks like, hey, these are the same complaints that happened 39 years ago when the Jews were complaining back then. It's not the same. And this is how you have a understanding of why we always say as parents, our kids don't understand us, and our parents are saying we don't understand them. There is a very big difference if you pay attention to the words. What these people were saying, who were not the first generation, is, why are we still stuck in the desert when we want to get into Canaan already? We want to get to the land that you told us about that has the Geffen, the Te'enah, the Rimon. We want to get there, but they're not saying we want to go back to Egypt. They're saying completely differently. We want to get out of the desert already and move forwards. But the first generation, they were comparing what Egypt was like. They wanted to go back. And what happened was Moshe, but what they did was they complained and they were annoying and they were aggravating. They weren't looking for saying in a nice way, let's get to Israel already. They were saying in a very, very unpleasant way. And what's Moshe's response? Because he forgot that the Kibud Av is that it's difficult for these kids to be nice about it. It does not respect. What does he do? He screams at them and he says, Shimu na hamorim. Listen now, all you rebels. And then he hits the rock, and maybe he was supposed to hit the rock, maybe not. But really, it's the morim, which I think is his failure. And he loses this connection to understand what the previous generation, what his children were trying to tell him, which is we really want to go to Israel. We just need to do it right. So I think that the quickest way to lose friends in community, even in B'nai David, is to say, I'm voting for Trump. Very quick. Or you say, I'm voting for Hillary. And there's this lack of respect for the dialogue of actually, as my friend David Gardner said, we all have a responsibility to make an informed vote. And that includes dialogue about learning what informs your vote. And yet, if you say, in a very liberal community even, I'm voting for something, and people just take it at face value, I don't like that, I don't like that. And I think that if you take into account the notion that Kibud Av means, not that the children have to respect the parents, but the parents have to understand that it's difficult to give that respect. I think that changes the entire nature of our dialogue with people, that we recognize as difficult it is for them to respect their parents. Imagine how much more difficult it is with 5 commandments that are basically about respecting people as opposed to 1. So take that home to the bank. Rabbi Chana ben Akasha, Amar Tzadok, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Zechor B'Zchil L'Tiach